This is from the last committee, Proc. Today, we're going to find out the Special Rapporteur is going to announce if there's an inquiry. Everyone seems to think he has no choice but to call one. But we're going to find out at high noon today. Here's the last Proc committee and see what MP Cooper on the Conservative side
Mr.
thinks.
Perrault, with respect to digital voter lists, you indicated, as I understood you, that it would be piloted in the event of by-elections beginning in the fall. Hypothetically, if there were no by-elections and we went to a general election, would Elections Canada deploy the digital voter list system?
So I would only deploy it if, first of all, I am very confident in the security and reliability of the solution, and following thorough engagement with the Advisory Committee of Political Parties, and hopefully through this committee, as we've indicated earlier.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate your acceptance to come back to this committee before the system is deployed or piloted. You had mentioned that a robust security assessment has taken place or is in the process of taking place. Can you just elaborate a little bit on what steps are being taken in that regard and what the timeline looks
Yes, there are
like?
different components to the system. So in terms of the hosting on the cloud solution, that cloud solution has been tested. It is in use right now for other services that we use, and it is monitored by the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. So that part of the solution is secure. In terms of the hardware, we will ensure that there is a supply chain integrity check on whatever hardware is used at the polling locations. We have not procured the software. This is a procurement that will be launched next fall. We do have some devices that are checked and secure for a pilot project, but a larger scale procurement will need to take place, and supply chain integrity, as always, will be part of that. And in terms of the software, it will be robustly tested prior to being deployed.
Now, supposing that cloud storage doesn't raise any significant security concerns, what about when data finds itself on devices at thousands of polling stations across the country? Steve Waterhouse, a former information systems security officer at DND, acknowledged before this committee that this increases the security risk. Can you elaborate or comment on that?
So there's always security risk in the paper process as well. We have lists that are circulating in the campaigns at the polls, and we have guidelines in place to make sure that they are recovered. Electronic lists of voters and voters who have voted are also supplied by us to political parties. So it's the entire environment that needs to be examined. But you're absolutely right that one of the aspects is making sure that there's good control on those devices when the information, once it's loaded, when it's accessed, and when it's recovered after the election process. So that is integral to the security of the e-list solution.
Thank you for that, because it's 338 ridings, 200 plus polling stations on average per riding, and in line with that, how is Elections Canada going to reliably vet staff who are handling this data right across the country in 338 ridings and hundreds of polling stations per riding?
So, Madam Chair, the data that is on that list is the same data that is currently used by poll workers and by campaign volunteers. It is basic information that includes the voter's name and address, as well as a unique identifier that are used by parties to make sure that they are looking at the right person when they harmonize their lists. So that is the very same information that is circulating right now with the parties, with the campaigns, and with the poll workers. So there's no change in that regard.
Where did this idea originate? Was it a directive from a minister, or was it an initiative of Elections Canada?
I have to say, Madam Chair, that we are one of the last jurisdictions in Canada to rely solely on paper lists. Provincially, territorially, electronic lists are the norm now. Quebec is moving towards that. They are with us, one of the late jurisdictions to that, and it's been demonstrated to be highly effective in managing the service to voters much more fluidly, providing better service with a
Next up,
workforce.
we have Walied Soliman. He was co-chair of Erin O'Toole's election campaign. So he's with the Conservative Party. He sued the YouTube commenter Daniel Boardman, or I guess for defamation, and won for $500,000. So here, check this out. MP Cooper questions him.
For appearing. I'll direct my questions to Mr. Soliman, although if Ms. Michaud has something to add, she's welcome to chime in. Mr. Soliman, you indicated that you had been providing the task force with pieces of information that you had been gathering from various campaigns of interference activities or potential interference activities by the Beijing regime. And as I understand your testimony, there appears to have been no follow-up by the site task force. So can you elaborate on when you began to inform the task force, how frequently you were informing the task force, and more specifically, what response you received?
Thank you. So first off, I did not say from the Beijing regime. I actually, our role as political actors working with our security establishment is to provide information and for them to make conclusions on those sorts of things. Information was provided as it came during the election to a small degree. And the larger amount of information that was gathered and put together was after the election and before the government was sworn in. In terms of reaction, I would say, in my two sort of recommendations for things for this committee to look at, I truly did not believe that there was an actual appreciation for the chilling effect that a perception, let alone an actual fact of a lack of adequate protection from our security establishment would have on public policy. I really felt that was not understood. And I think a big lesson from this, and I hope something that our security establishment takes, is actually a greater appreciation for that. Not everybody's as brave as Michael. There are many that would be a lot more hesitant or less amplified. Secondly, I felt that particularly when we talked about, what if there's something in our political party that we need to be aware of? What is the standard at which you'll communicate with us? I felt, Mr. Cooper, that there wasn't, that there was a feeling that they did not have the legislative tools to engage with us in a manner that was necessary, in my view, for to ensure that the process was adequate.
And how early in the process were you bringing forward concerns to the task force about potential interference activities?
I would say probably mid to 3/4 of the way through the election, and then definitely after the election.
Reports of interference that you were aware of were principally in the Greater Vancouver and Greater Toronto areas?
To the best of my recollection.
And when Fred Delory appeared before the committee, I asked him whether he would agree with the analogy that the information that was being relayed to the site task force, recognizing, of course, that he was not one of the two members, you and Ms. Michaud were, but based on what he understood, based upon conversations that he had had, was that he concurred that it was essentially a one-way street and that it was effectively like sending information into a black hole. Nothing was followed up upon. Would you agree with that characterization?
Unfortunately, I do.
And I take it, based upon your testimony, that at no time did the site task force alert you to any interference activities. Because as I understood, what you said was that there were they told you that there were foreign actors that were involved in or had an interest in the election, but there was nothing actionable, nothing that should be of particular concern. Is that correct?
I'd say there were two concerns. The most alarming to me, and I think why I started really taking interest in this again, was we were never told that the extent of the issues in 2019. In fact, I left meetings feeling that there was nothing that happened in 2019. To the extent it was inconsequential. We've obviously now learned that was not true. Secondly, the threats in connection with 2021 were very generic. Multiple global players, things to watch out for. And in fact, Mr. Cooper, I could tell you, I recall in one of the meetings, I sort of raised my hand and said, "Listen, I work for a leader that is that wants to do the right thing. Like, he absolutely wants to do the right thing. Help us help you." And I remember saying, "Look, we're in the fundraising and vote getting business. People put up their hands and say they want to hold a fundraiser for us. We gladly, do the best searches we can, and we get them to do a fundraiser for us. That's at all political parties. We're in the vote getting business." And it's the same. And I don't think that we felt we were getting adequate responses to that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you. Well, the Special Rapporteur, David Johnston, is about to call an inquiry, no doubt. That's today, the 23rd, just before Story Day. What do you think? Leave your comments down below. Like, subscribe. Have a good day. Don't forget to like, dislike, subscribe, and comment. Safe Space Cafe. And always,